Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
Here's the thing, the online marketing space, it's still, even though there's growing regulations, there's GDPR, there's the iOS changes, there's all these things that companies, the platforms are doing and the governments are doing to protect consumers. The fact is it's still pretty much the wild, wild west a little bit. We are still having people figuring out how they can monopolize, maximize, use to the very limits without regard for the humanity of the consumers so that they can line their own pockets. And that's capitalism. But here's the thing about it is that as business owners, I believe firmly that we have a responsibility to be truthful and honest with our consumers, which is a little bit, unfortunately, contrary to a lot of what's been taught in the online marketing space.
You're listening to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zaratny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a coach certified in time and stress management, helping clients make space for what matters most in their lives. Join me each episode and we'll talk about decluttering, stress management, habits, personalized productivity, gratitude, and so much more. I understand the overwhelm of life because I'm a wife, mom to kids and cats, and a former caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. When you start a business, you immerse yourself in the world of marketing and sales. You learn how to speak about who you are, what you offer in a way that is hopefully convincing. You have something special to offer the world, and you learn to share it and ask for the sale. You get the sale, it benefits others, and the economy. So far, so good. So then what's the issue? Business owners are being taught tactics that range from questionable to flat-out dishonest because, unfortunately, they work. While Instagram ads with yachts are obviously unethical, there are other ways consumers are pushed that are so ingrained they've become accepted. Online marketing is generally unregulated and false claims abound. Many companies use FOMO, the fear of missing out, and urgency, which triggers a stress response on purpose, all for the sale. So what can we do as business owners? Identify where we stand and where the line is so we can keep our messaging ethical and effective. Today, I welcome Mia Francis-Poulin to the Positively Living podcast. She helps us understand how we can keep the respect and still make the sale through the copy we write and share. Mia is the copywriter-in-chief at The Copy House, a boutique copywriting agency for 6- and 7-figure business owners who want to market authentically and ethically, master their messaging, and empower their audiences to change the world and their world. Mia and I have known each other for years. I was a guest on her podcast, Mama Build Your Empire, where we talked about positivity, organization, and gratitude. I know, you're shocked. She was advocating for special needs mamas who were trying to balance family and business, as she's one herself. And we bonded over the caregiving trauma that changes how we need to approach business and the understanding and faith that it can still be done successfully. Mia defines ethical marketing as using respect, providing consent, and offering education. She shares why she believes it's so important for us that we have a responsibility to message with integrity. She provides specific alternate approaches and fantastic questions we can ask ourselves to create truly effective copy that honors and empowers potential buyers. We also talk about why ethical copy is actually more effective. It's an incredible concept that we can do what's right while being profitable. Now let's join Mia for this powerful conversation. Welcome, Mia Francis-Poulin, to the Positively Living podcast. I am so excited to have you here. It's been a long time coming.
I am so excited to be here. I have just been wanting to be on your podcast for a while, because it's been a minute. And then also, listening to the latest episodes that you've had on, I'm just like, she's speaking my language. So
Yeah. And I knew that you could come on and speak more of this language, which is so important. And, we go way back. Oh my goodness. It feels like a lifetime ago with one of your original podcasts. And it's all about balancing business and family and life and really honoring what's going on in life. And I'm excited to dig into this topic, but I would love for you to start first with telling us a bit more about who you are, who you're helping right now, and really what makes you light up.
Yes, yes. Oh, I love this question. So, first off, I always start by saying that I'm a mom. I'm a mom of two. My eldest has special medical needs as well. And that informs a lot of my life, how I do business, how I manage business. In fact, my little one's running around outside my door right now. So, if you hear him, that's just him saying, hey, whatever, it's all good. We live real lives over here in my household. And so, I'm a mom first. I'm a mom to two beautiful boys living here in the very hot state of Texas. My business is the Copy House, which we focus on helping businesses market ethically, authentically, and profitably as well, because you can be all three things and still have a business that you want.
I love that. And so that is really what we're digging in today is this idea of ethical marketing, ethical copy, but that you can also have it be effective too. And that's the brilliance of what you do and what you're speaking to. So let's start with, I guess, what trends you're seeing. And does this connect to this idea of there's a phrase going around, Michelle Mazer and I talked about it on the podcast, this idea of bro marketing, right? And sort of that pushy kind of salesy thing. And that's the thing I think we see that gives sales a bad name. So what is it that you're seeing that are the trends that are the issues and what you're doing about it?
Yes, absolutely. And in my head, I call it bro marketing as well, but I'm trying to be a little circumspect about it. But yeah, no, in essence, exactly what you're describing, the pictures of rented Lambos and private jets that are sitting on the tarmac and false claims in advertising. Because here's the thing, the online marketing space, it's still, even though there's growing regulations, there's GDPR, there's the iOS changes, there's all these things that companies, the platforms are doing and the governments are doing to protect consumers. The fact is it's still pretty much the wild, wild west a little bit. We are still having people figuring out how they can monopolize, maximize, use, to the very limits without regard for the humanity of the consumers so that they can line their own pockets. And that's capitalism. But here's the thing about it is that as business owners, I believe firmly that we have a responsibility to be truthful and honest with our consumers, which is a little bit, unfortunately, contrary to a lot of what's been taught in the online marketing space. We've been taught to use things like deadline timers and deadline funnels to raise cortisol levels, which why do we want to cause a stress reaction in the bodies and minds of our consumers? I think that we can do things differently. And what my business has been doing for the last almost 3 years is figuring out and deploying strategies that infuse humanity back into this buying process. And messaging is at the core of that.
Yeah. And I mean, I see it all the time. I've succumbed to it. I've also been taught it. And I know that so much of it, like you said, so we're going to give a pass on maybe going into this bro marketing thing. I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but that's been one of the ways it's been described. But the real key here is whatever marketing it is that you see that pushes people's buttons, creates more stress. I'm over here. I'm trying to reduce everyone's stress. What are you doing to me? But there is, I think, sort of inherently underneath a good intention, right? Whatever we're being taught, we're like, we want to give you something that's going to be effective, that's going to work, that's going to help you make money. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that inherently. But what we're talking about is the responsibility of doing it in a way that's both effective and, I guess, right ultimately, and that can help everyone. So we're still here as business owners, creating solutions, helping people, serving people. We are still here to support our families and to make money. But we also have a responsibility, just like I feel we have a responsibility to the world, to try to recycle what we can, to pay attention to our carbon footprint. And this is not standing on a soapbox or judging people or telling people what they need to do. But why I want to have this conversation is to say, well, if this doesn't feel right, there's a reason and there's an alternative.
Absolutely.
What I'm curious about is that when you mentioned like the description of like the pictures with the yachts and the things like that, and you roll your eyes hard, you know what's going on. Sometimes you still get suckered into it, which just drives me crazy. Those are the obvious ones. What do you see that's the more subtle, the sneakier? What else is going on there that we might not even realize?
Yeah. And you touched on this just a second ago that you've been taught this way of marketing, right? I believe that the entire structure that we have, especially around launches, which we work with clients, probably 85% of our clients are launching a product. They're relaunching it. And the structure of we're going to say that you'll never get this again at this price, or you're going to miss out on this thing, this whole concept of FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. It does not serve you, nor does it serve your clients. Because here's the thing, we shouldn't feel that we have to convince our people to buy. We should feel that your primary focus, and this is what I get into about ethical marketing. I'll give a little teaser, but it's about education, educating your buyer so that they can be empowered to make that decision. Because here's what happens when someone makes a decision based on FOMO: an hour, 3 hours, a month, halfway through your program, they realize, they wake up and they say, okay, I did this because of this reason, not because I made it from an empowered decision of I want to do this because I feel like this is the right decision for me. So if we truly want to serve our clients beyond getting the sale, we have to take the time to educate and empower, not cajole or structure our sales and our launches around this kind of false narrative.
Yeah. And what you're talking about here that I love so much is respect. You're advocating for the client, you are showing them respect. And so, as a client, you want to look for that and say, this is someone who's not pushing me to get this because by tomorrow it's going to run out, but rather because they know what I need, they get me, and they're going to be there. There's a great coach that I just started working with who her words were, I'm here when you're ready. And I love those words. And I say those too. And if I may, I'm proud of the fact, knock wood, I mean, it could always change, but I'm proud of the fact that even though my sales might be slower, I don't have refunds. I mean, because no one's asked for them. Not that
Right.
I wouldn't. If someone were truly unhappy, we'd make it right. That's not a problem. But we go in slowly and very specifically so that everyone knows we're both on the same page. This is what we want. This is going to work. We're a good fit. It's a relationship.
Exactly, exactly. And that's the other part, right? Client retention, customer retention. That's all comes down to experience and building relationships. We have to allow ourselves to think beyond this just initial sale, this initial launch, because if you have people falling out of the funnel, right? You have people falling out of your customer relationship, it's more expensive to get new clients than it is to retain and grow with an existing one. That's science there. That's numbers there.
Absolutely. I mean, you learn this in marketing. I speak of it from a productivity standpoint when we have like the Pareto principle, right? 80% of your results, are coming from 20% of your efforts. Well, that 80-20, sometimes it's 70-30 or 90-10, but that percentage, it applies to so many things in your life. I talk about how, 80% of what we wear is like 20% of our closet. Well, guess what? 80% of your income is very likely 20% of your clients. And if you build that relationship and you have that retention that you're talking about, that's a huge impact on your business where you're not having to go out and get new clients. And that's, 80% of your entire income. If you think about it, wow. I mean, that's so worth it. And then at the same time, you are also standing in integrity as a business owner. So, I mean, this is like a win, 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 win. I don't know. I've lost count of the wins.
Yes, no. And also the other part of it is, and we talked about this, a few minutes ago, is how do you want to feel in your business? What type of business do you want to run? You're right. You said this pretty poignantly. If you're feeling that something's off in the marketing, if you feel like something that you've been taught is not aligned with what you want for yourself or for your business or for your clients, you owe it to yourself to listen to that.
And that's listening to your gut and saying, okay, again, I've been taught this way. This is how people do it. This works. But however, hang on, wait a minute. Yeah, ask that question. Okay, it works, but is it worth it? Same idea in productivity coaching. I talk about how we push ourselves constantly. And I don't know, skipping out on the sleep, pushing yourself might work temporarily, but then you burn out. Was it worth it?
Yeah.
There's a better way. So in this case, we're talking about how we market and how we, I guess, communicate essentially, right, in building that relationship. So, what are some of the tips that you would offer in terms of how we change that around, or what we can, whether it's replacing some of the things that we've been taught, or generally how you approach what you're doing, and like what steps we could take today to make a difference and change our marketing and our copy to be more respectful and advocate for our clients?
Yes, yes. So the first thing I'll say is you need to take a step back and let's look at the definition of what it is that we're trying to accomplish when we are talking about ethical marketing. So for me, the way that I define it was with three pillars. It's infusing respect, it is getting informed consent, and it's also about educating the buyer, right? What you want to make sure that you're doing is you are respecting the buying process. There is a certain cadence and timeline that has to be respected for people to come to their decisions. And that's fine. We shouldn't try to rush that process because all that does is disempower your consumer. The other thing is getting their consent. What that means is as auditing how you are marketing, taking a step back and looking at what messaging are you putting out there? Are you using things that feel misaligned, and really sitting with that and looking at what feels wrong about it? How would you, as the business owner, want to do things differently? And then also the educational piece. When we write copy at the Copy House for our clients, and again, most of that is in the format of a launch, we're looking at what pieces of information, what objections need to be addressed and not necessarily even challenged, but addressed, talked about, right, with the consumer as we're in conversation with them through our sales copy, because that's what a sales page is. It's a conversation. That's what your emails to your lists are. They're you in conversation with one person on the other side of that phone screen or that computer screen, having a talk about what it is that you can offer and how you can help them get to the other side, which is what I talk about a lot. I talk about the transformation versus focusing on the pain, right? Which is what a lot of copywriting formulas talk about. Agitate the pain, highlight the pain. No, let's talk about what they really were wanting and vision cast that to the future. So thinking about what information do they need to receive to make that buying decision that feels good and supportive and the right next step for them, and giving them the avenue to take that step. Like you said, the coach that you love, that they're here when they're ready. So, which I think is brilliant. I love it so much. I love it so much. So that's what I want. I want to kind of take that step back and say the respect, the informed consent. You're not using psychological manipulative tactics just for the sake of using them because someone told you to, and then educating your buyer. That's how I would frame that up. And then taking that framework and auditing what you're doing and making your own path forward on how you want to market.
I love how you describe this. This is like a piece right here. If you took this question and you answered it, I think you'd already be a step ahead in terms of creating copy that would provide respect, consent, and education. It is, what information do they need to make the best decision?
Mm-hmm.
And you provide that information. And you also mentioned the transformation versus focusing on the pain. And I remember watching a masterclass of yours and loving that, where you're like, can we stop forcing people to like sit in their pain? And like, it's kind of like, someone just like sprained an ankle or broke a leg or something, and you're pushing and you're like, does this hurt here? Does this hurt? What? No. You're like, how can I help you? Okay, try not to move. This is what we're going to do next. It's going to be okay. There's lots of help. That's how I perceive this. People who come to me are overwhelmed and stressed and either burnt out, or they were burnt out and then they thought they got over the burnt out, but they're heading toward it again and barreling toward it and wondering how this happened. And my first instinct is to be like, well, okay, I don't want to make it awkward with a hug, but could we just take a deep breath? It's going to be okay. This is where you are. We're acknowledging that, and it's okay. Now, what can we do about it? And that's what you're talking about, right? The transformation. What can we do about it?
Exactly, exactly. Instead of having the marathon runner who just broke their leg laying up and trying to heal, instead of pushing on it, saying, hey, we can get you up and running again, and giving them the path towards that. Oh, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it when we're sitting here just like needling people and just to make them feel bad, because it's all rooted in psychological manipulation.
Right. I mean, even what you said before, which I find so fascinating, and I haven't heard someone speak about it in this way, is this idea of having, let's say, that pushing that sense of urgency. That's a huge one, right? That in marketing, I hear the sense of urgency. This is going to go. There's a deadline, and then you hype everyone up. But you specifically said this is raising cortisol levels. I mean, I think my cortisol levels are jumping up just talking about it with you right now. Like I'm getting hyper about it, and in two ways. One, and I'm thinking about it and that kind of that reaction that I have, and two, I'm adamantly against it. It really frustrates me, and it probably frustrates me even more when I sit back and think about how many times I've fallen for it.
Yeah, it's a twofold issue, right? Because oftentimes the urgency is false. Most of the time, I would wager the urgency is false. And two, because it's not necessary, right? There are other ways that you can infuse the importance of or the value of making a decision in this moment in time. You can use things like I'm going to add on a bonus versus saying these things are vanishing, right? If you join now, you get this extra free thing versus if you don't act now, you lose out on this thing.
I love that. That's such a positive spin. Yes.
Right. And so there are other ways, and we strategize these ways of adding urgency, infusing the importance of now in copy with our clients. But no, that's just one that pops in my head. But the bottom line is it's not necessary. We are creative beings and we can figure out other ways to articulate what we're trying to do.
Exactly. And I guess the bottom line is, as you're listening to this, how do you feel about what you're doing? How do you feel as a consumer, as a client? Have you experienced this before? Do you want to do this in your own business? And as you're trying to ultimately make the sale, and again, it's okay. It's okay to ask for the sale, to make the sale. We are in business. We are, I mean, yes, I also think it's important that we talk about the bigger picture, our why, and what we're trying to accomplish. But I don't want to leave behind this idea of the money mindset of so many people being like, well, then I'm not in it for the money. So then I don't have to worry about the ethics. I want us to be able to see that both can coexist beautifully, that we can be profitable. How about we use that word, but also do it with respect and advocacy. In this grand scheme of things, one of the things you're talking about is not convincing. And I really like that concept. It was something that I learned a long time ago. And I still have to answer this question to people in random Facebook threads and things like that, where they're like, well, why should I work with you? I'm like, that's something that you're going to have to decide for yourself. But I'm happy to tell you what I do and find out what it is that's going on with you and how we match. But I'm not here to convince you because, again, what happens after? I immediately thought when you were describing that of the idea of buyer's remorse. And here's the ironic part: if you push and then they have buyer's remorse, which is a natural, I guess, a response to being pushed, they might have it and it might not have been necessary because they really do need what you have to offer.
Right. Exactly. But also, I think that there's this idea of readiness, right? Because having to convince is, I feel, comes from a place of the buyer oftentimes not feeling or having some type of reason why they feel they aren't ready. It's not quite the right time or it's not quite the right fit. I believe that they should have the information that they need to already come to that conclusion on their own without having to be so called convinced by you or convinced in your copy.
Now, does that go into this idea of providing copy that educates such that so many of their questions are answered? I mean, where do we stand in terms of what we're providing to them before we even have a conversation, like an in person conversation? Do you know what I'm asking?
Right. Yes. No. And so, yes, it's all about in your sales copy providing them that information, which means you have to know your people, right? And you have to know who's the right person, like who's the actual right fit that this would speak to. And there's a lot of nuance in this. And this is kind of where the art part of copywriting comes in. But it's about knowing what those questions are going to be in their mind and being able to present them, address them, answer them before you get on the call. Because oftentimes, if you're having a call type of application type process, right? Because oftentimes when we have clients that have sales calls as part of their sales process, these people are coming to the call not to be sold. They're already know that this is the thing that they want to do. It's more so a matter of fit at this point of validating their already held belief. That's why they only take 10, 15 minutes.
And how efficient is that? I mean, my productivity coach's heart is just lit up thinking about that. When you have the right conversation through your copy, then they come to you having so many questions answered, understanding so much about that connection, really on their side, already having built the relationship with you or started. And then you can, confirm the rest.
Exactly. Exactly. Again, that's what it comes back to. You're having a human conversation through your copy with another human. So if you do get on a call and you're having a conversation with them, it's not to you're not introducing yourself necessarily. You're not telling the whole spiel again, right? They already know all of that.
I love that. And again, all of it goes back to education, to knowing them. Is there anything else that you would share in terms of what we can step out today and do to kind of make this shift? You talked about taking that definition that you described, respect, consent, and education, and auditing what we do. And anything else after that? What would you say?
Yeah. So I just want to reiterate the importance of doing this work because, to quote Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility, right? And over the past couple of years, especially, I've seen not just in our consumer world, in the business world, but in our society as a whole, that messaging really is a truly powerful thing. And when used for ill, bad things happen. And we've seen that in our society. We've seen uprisings happening, right? And all of that comes down to, not maybe not all, but a good chunk of it comes down to rhetoric and messaging and presenting messaging in certain patterns that eventually get people to take actions that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise taken. So I feel that we're at this really critical point in our society, but also, us having been inside and starting to find a new way of living life after going through this collective trauma of coronavirus that's still around, that we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our businesses. We owe it to our consumers to reprioritize our humanity in marketing and to know that we can still build profitable businesses, but it doesn't have to be by any means necessary. It doesn't have to be without concern on what we're doing to people in our marketing and our messaging. That's the main thing I just wanted to say. And thank you for giving me the space to say that, because I feel like this is really central to why I do what I do. It's to support mission focused businesses who are out there trying to do good with the good in the world. And I think we should all care about this stuff.
I'm going to quote Jeff Harry right now when I say preach.
Thank you for allowing me the space to do that.
Oh, truly my pleasure. And really, what you described is why I wanted to have this conversation with you. So thank you for that. That's awesome. It's a reminder. I mean, we need to talk about both why we want to do what we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing, why we're talking about what we're talking about on the podcast, what we can do about it. And we need to understand what's going on and what's going to drive us forward. And you're absolutely right. There is a responsibility that we have as business owners. Not only that, there's an opportunity we have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's wonderful because words are so powerful.
Yes, yes.
So, with that, tell us, what are you currently working on and where can we find you online?
Oh, yes. So I actually just released my own course. My big love project is called Command Your Copy. And in it, it's for business owners who are still DIYing their copy, but they are looking to do it in a way that feels good, right? But also to get the framework and the resources they need to step by step write that sales page to educate their buyers, write those emails in that email sequence for their launch that actually builds connection, but also gives people the route to take action when they're ready. And so Command Your Copy is out right now. It's at www.commandyourcopy.com. You can check it all out. And right now I'm hosting for people who buy Command Your Copy. They have access to a monthly copy lab where we're live workshopping the copy that you're working on. So you can jump in, you can still get my eyes on your stuff, which I think is great. Well, at least, people tell me it's great. Hair flip. And so that's what I've been dedicating a lot of time to, and also supporting our one-on-one clients.
Fantastic. Okay, I'll be sure to have links that connect to Mia in the show notes. So look for that. And let's have some fun with a rapid wrap up, shall we?
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right. Please fill in the blanks. The song that always makes me dance is
I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston. It's my pump up song.
awesome. All right. Whitney will be going on the Positively Living Podcast Spotify dance playlist. Volume 2, I think, at this point, because we're getting so many of those. So be sure to connect to that and listen and dance along because that's a good one. All right. How about a quote or mantra that I share all the time is?
Everything is figure outable.
Oh, Marie Folio.
Yes.
Yep, that's a good one. And then, of course, I will also call back the Spider-Man one too, as well. I think
Yes.
that's really good. Okay, and how about a resource book or app that just makes my life easier?
Oh, goodness. So I would say, so I'm actually going to put out, oh gosh, this is rapid. Okay. I would have to say my notes. No, Otter AI.
Oh, that's a
Otter
good
makes my
one.
life so much easier because I'm oftentimes, not everybody on my team is on Voxer because I'm very much like a let me send a voice note type person. And I don't want, and so I go on Otter, I record my voice notes and all of my thoughts. I shoot it over in Slack with the transcript to my team and they're able to decipher what I'm talking about and go make the world real.
I love that. That's an excellent suggestion. I'm a big fan of Otter AI as well. Any kind of way that we can transcribe is just so helpful in terms of repurposing content. I know for me, I've had times where I'd want to write some kind of script, but really I think and I externally process. So I love to talk it out. So I will talk it out, then I will transcribe it, then I will take the words and I will tweak it. So there's so many different ways that you can use a transcription app like that. So awesome suggestion. All right. And last, but definitely not least, what or whom are you grateful for today, Mia?
Oh gosh, I'm so grateful for my entire family. I love them so much. And I was cuddling on the sofa with my littles yesterday and we were just watching Luca, which shout out to Disney Plus and for keeping our whole household going. But I just kind of had that, that those moments you just look up and you're like, this is my life. I was
Yeah.
just like, I have these two beautiful kids, a wonderful supportive husband. I'm sitting in this house with my bay window, which has been my dream since I was a child living in apartments. I always wanted this bay window in my house, and I have my bay window. And I was just like, this is beautiful. I love it. So I'm just so grateful for my whole family.
Hmm. It's such a beautiful picture that you're painting, and it's such a great reminder of what we can look around to find gratitude in. And all I have to do is look through the screen right now to find my gratitude. I'm so grateful for you and all that you have shared today, and for us being connected as long as we have and supporting each other the way we do. So I want to thank you for shining your light in this world and for sharing it with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.